Have you ever been in the situation where you read something over and over again trying to learn about it, but you just really don't seem to understand it? We've all been there. We're told from a young age that rote memorization and endless reading are the best ways to learn, but let's be honest, you'll only know the what of a concept, never the why or the how of it all. However, do you know that shifting your perspective to a learning by teaching mindset is the most effective and fastest way to learn? This isn't something new either. The method has been in existence for a long time. The Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca believed that people learn while they teach, and we agree with that saying because there's real modern-day evidence to back it up. Don't worry, we'll tell you the reason why we agree with it in a bit. So just sit tight and watch as we explore what it means and how you can learn faster by teaching others. Welcome to ALUX. When teachers become students and vice versa. Just like we said earlier, the notion of learning through teaching has been in existence way before you and I were born. Most people either don't know about it or don't understand how it works. But believe me when I tell you that this works in ways you can't even imagine. Let's take the great French philosopher Jean-Paul Martin as an example. The man established the modern learning by teaching method and made it what it is today. In the 1980s, Jean-Paul Martin created his learning style by teaching German kids to learn French by teaching their peers. Although it was initially ignored because it appeared to lack rote learning and discipline, it proved to be quite effective and has since inspired many others. Another example? How about the one you might have seen or experienced yourself? Have you ever explained something to a friend and felt how you understood it better as a result? Even if this doesn't ring a bell, you probably have. It could be a work skill or just school stuff. Hell, there could be dozens of other reasons. But nevertheless, you'll find that teaching someone about something will improve your own understanding of it. The great scientist Albert Einstein once famously said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." And we don't have to tell you that it's quite common for students to tutor kids in lower grades. Although this cascading mentorship is often utilized to compensate for a lack of teachers, a similar dynamic may be observed outside of school when older siblings assist their younger ones. And it's for this reason that we find these students and older siblings outperform those who don't teach others, implying that teaching benefits them as well as their students. And ALUXer, everything we've been talking about this far is known as the protege effect. The protege effect isn't limited to the academic environment. When it comes to hobbies, teaching some basic skills to novices might help you to refine and perfect those talents yourself. Another area we should point out is your workplace. Have you ever been assigned the job of onboarding a new staff member? Let's just imagine for a second that you have. Okay, so explaining important routines to new staff might help you remember them better. And we haven't talked about the positive effects it gives in general. Explaining concepts to others who aren't familiar with them can help you to comprehend them better. It's part of our everyday life. Teaching your kid how to make cookies will help you be better at it too. Moreover, you'll likely be more serious about anything you learn if you know you're going to be teaching someone else about it later. After all, you don't want your student to think you don't know what you're doing. Look, we completely understand if you still have some doubts about this. So how about we dive a little bit deeper, shall we? Why does it work? Remember we just told you that individuals that learn with the expectation to teach others tend to benefit from their learning more than their peers? Well, this protege effect is a success due to several reasons. And trust us when we say that these reasons will shed any doubts you might have about this process. Unless, of course, you're the type that hates changes and you'd rather prefer doing things the same way as before. But you know what they say about doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Stop that. So let's begin. 1. Teaching a subject requires a shift in viewpoint to a more abstract approach. When teaching, it's not always enough to simply explain an outcome. You must draw parallels between what the person understands and what you're teaching. 2. You're forced to think critically about a subject when you teach. You must be able to focus your attention in such a way that your student grasps the concept without being bombarded with irrelevant information. And the best way to achieve that is by learning everything you can about a subject. 3. When teaching, you feel afraid of not doing it well, and that's completely normal, especially when you're new to it. You don't want students to feel disappointed or fail to explain things clearly. However, this anxiety might serve as both an extrinsic and intrinsic incentive for you to improve your learning. And 4. When teaching, you'll employ new and improved methods. If you're compelled to explain a concept, you'll have to figure out how to do it properly. Will you employ active learning, case studies, or a presentation to engage your students? There are numerous possibilities, and investing in teaching allows you to examine each one. Now, aren't these points enough reason for you to start teaching others? After all, you should now understand why it's the best way to learn faster and better yourself. But what you probably don't know is that there are other benefits to the protege effect. So now that we know what the protege effect is, why we think you should utilize it, and some examples of how it's being used effectively, let's highlight some of the other benefits. Mind you, we're going to be using some examples to make these points. 1. It encourages you to apply effective learning techniques. So this is one of the key perks of using the protege effect. You get to explore several options to determine the right fit for you. Okay, let's break it down for you to understand. A few years ago, a study was carried out in which participants were divided into various groups before being told to study a passage in a textbook. The first group was told that they were studying for a test. The other group was told they were learning so they could teach the passage to other students. The researchers discovered that when students prepared to teach someone else, they recollected more information from the passage, especially the critical points. These kids employed more effective learning strategies, such as properly prioritizing and organizing material and thinking about how it all fits together. 2. It encourages metacognitive processing. Another interesting study took place where all students were asked to study for a complex math problem. Again, some students were told they were going to teach the problem to others, while the rest were simply told to prepare for a test. In comparison to those who were merely studying for the test, the research found that those who were learning to teach others utilized 1.3 times more metacognitive strategies when answering the math problem. I guess it just goes to show that nearly every individual wants to ensure they're very proficient in explaining a concept to another person. 3. It leads to an increase in motivation. This is pretty much what the process would lead to. That's because expecting to teach can boost your drive to study because people often put in more effort to learn for those they'll teach than they do for themselves. And 4. It encourages competence and autonomy. Expecting to teach can make you feel more competent and in control. This is because seeing yourself as a teacher rather than a student will boost your confidence. We could talk about more instances where the protege effect has shown its importance, but we know you get the picture by now. So how about we now tell you how to take advantage of the protege effect? 1. Learn as if you were teaching. The most obvious takeaway is we should all learn as though we're going to teach it to others. Take notes, create outlines for key points, and practice your lines. However, if you know you're the only one who will ever listen, this might feel kind of pointless. Let's be honest, we all have a hard time doing things when we won't use them explicitly. You might feel like you're doing all this extra work for nothing if there's no one to teach, but there's always ways around this. If you don't have access to a captive audience, why not consider writing about your new topic? Since some social media platforms can operate as open platforms for your newfound knowledge, well, you can post it almost anywhere, guaranteed someone's going to learn. 2. Using the rubber duck method. Don't want to prepare to teach without an audience? Then why not teach a rubber duck, or any other inanimate object for that matter, maybe even your pet. You only need something to throw your ideas at. This method has become popular among engineers who are trying to debug code, and it's based on the protege effect. But this method doesn't have to be limited to programming. It can also be used to prepare presentations, edit essays, or review exams, among other things. The key concept is that speaking out loud can help in problem solving. Honestly, it makes no difference if you're talking to a rubber duck, a dog, or a coworker. We like this method because it often helps you to discover fresh ideas, or at the very least, connect disparate pieces of information. 3. Teaching. We honestly believe that this could be the biggest challenge you'll face. Want to know why? Because it means you'll need an actively listening ear. So the more interactive you're teaching, the better. When a student is active, they can point out where they're confused or where something isn't making sense to them. They can point out areas you may have overlooked in your studies and ask questions you never considered. Can you see why you need to make sure your teaching is interactive? 4. Betty's brain. Did you know that students can now employ the protege effect more easily due to technological advancements? The use of avatars is a perfect example. You may have stumbled upon something called Betty's Brain. This is a downloadable program that uses the avatar Betty to help students understand science topics by encouraging them to not only study for themselves, but also to teach Betty. So why not encourage your kids to make use of this software? It would definitely improve their own learning skills. Alright, now it's time to wrap all of this up, but know this. Whichever method you use to learn will depend on factors such as your personal preference, circumstances, and goals. If you have a lot of spare time and an upcoming exam where you need to do well, meeting with someone to teach them might be an ideal option to prepare. Even if you despise teaching and don't have a lot of time, you'll probably be better off learning a topic pretending you're going to teach it to someone rather than really teaching it to someone. Okay, Alexers, as always, for those of you sticking with us until the very end, you know we've got a bonus for you. Teaching is kind of like showing, and in that way, actors have had to learn how to do skills that they previously had no idea how. Jesse Eisenberg is not a magician, but he played one for the film series Now You See Me. He shows you how to do some of the tricks in the movies, but he actually had to learn how to do them himself in real life, not just as the character. Pretty cool.